Good morning. My name is Leon Anderson. I am the drummer as part of the Florida State University Faculty Jazz Ensemble. And we're here today to talk to you guys a little bit about this great American art form that we call jazz. And what we will do is we will take the opportunity to talk to you about each instrument's role in the ensemble, as well as perform a few compositions for you to demonstrate some of these concepts that we'll talk to you about today. As you see, my instrument is the drums, and one of my primary roles is to help establish the rhythm in the ensemble, not necessarily to keep the time. It's everybody's responsibility to keep the time, but it's one of my responsibilities to help establish the rhythm along with the bass and along with the piano, which form the core, what we call the rhythm section in the ensemble. The way that the drum set works in the jazz ensemble is the instrument is voiced from the top down, meaning the ride cymbal is the essential voice that is the dominant factor when you're playing swing music, okay? And everything is voiced from the top of the kit down. To the hi-hat is the secondary voice, which basically establishes the pocket. That means beats 2 and 4, and I'll demonstrate this in just a second. The snare drum plays what we call unpredictable comping. Comping is a short term for accompaniment patterns that sometimes works in tandem with what the piano player may be doing rhythmically with chord voicings, but he also plays rhythms too. And sometimes we coordinate rhythmic ideas full of call and response back and forth with each other while the swing is happening, while the hi-hat is playing 2 and 4, and the snare drum is playing these unpredictable comping patterns, and the bass drum sits at the bottom of everything. It sits underneath the sound of everything and helps to establish that quarter note pulse. So I use a technique where we establish the bass drum basically creating a felt but not heard necessarily unless it's intentional concept that we call feathering the bass drum that sits underneath the sound, and it helps to kind of solidify the walking pattern that the bass player is playing. So to just kind of demonstrate a little bit, this is kind of what it sounds like. So as you see, the primary rhythm, the swing pattern, is what is usually established when you're talking about playing swing music. And again, I voice the top of the kit from the ride cymbal, which is the dominant factor. It's the engine of the train, along with the bass player. We kind of anchor the rhythm. Keep in the pocket, 2 and 4 in the hi-hat, unpredictable patterns on the snare drum, basically coming out of the shuffle feel, and then the bass drum sitting underneath that. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about how the drums and the bass and the drums and the piano factor into the rhythm section, and talk about the hookup. That's the term that we like to use between the bass and the drums, particularly the ride cymbal and the bass drum, and the quarter note pattern that the bass player uses when he plays what we call walking bass lines, and how we connect in that way. And then also the pianist will come along and talk to you about how he deals and establishes the harmony, but also deals with rhythm at the same time. And all three of us kind of share this network that we have of communication with each other. While we're all working on what we're doing individually, we're still listening across the band to make sure that we're all communicating and we're all supporting each other, as well as who may be soloing at the same time as well. We'll have two gentlemen also come up and talk to you about their concept of how they orchestrate melody, play in unison, things like that, on top of this palette that we as the rhythm section try to create. So you will hear from several of my colleagues that will talk to you about this today. We have Rodney Jordan on the bass, our jazz bass professor at FSU, Mr. Bill Peterson at the piano, our jazz piano professor at FSU. On saxophone, we have David Detwiler, who's also our jazz saxophone teacher, and also Mr. Kevin Jones, our jazz trombone teacher. All of these gentlemen will come to you and talk to you about their role in the ensemble. And I just want to take this opportunity to say we're very, very thankful for the Good Times Jazz Club for allowing us this opportunity to come and talk to you about this art form that we call jazz. And we really appreciate the opportunity and hope that you guys will enjoy what you see today.
Hello, my name is Rodney Jordan, and I'm here to talk to you today about the bass and the role of the bass in the jazz ensemble. The bass is the lowest pitched instrument in the ensemble, and it anchors everything. It works in conjunction with the drummer to keep steady time. The bass, as you can see, is positioned in the very center of the entire band. So I have my drummer on one side of me, my piano player on the other side of me, and then the horn players are in the front. The bass is the center of a lot of the harmonic function of the ensemble, in that we are playing the roots to the chords and we are supplying the quarter-note feel within the swing rhythms. And so, being the lowest pitched instrument, and when you think about the drums that are playing, he's playing the drums from the top down, that means that the ride cymbal on the top and the bass at the bottom are working together to create the pulse of the music. So we're going to sort of demonstrate that. You'll hear me play a little bit of walking bass along with the ride cymbal. So the rhythms that you heard there were basically the swing rhythm, which goes bang, dang, dang, gang, dang. We heard that on the ride cymbal. And on the bass underneath, we heard mostly quarter notes, bam, 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 ba-doom, doom. But every now and then, I would also play the same rhythms that he's playing on the ride cymbal. So I may play doom, 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 de-doom, doom, 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 doom. So basically, you're hearing sort of the same rhythms coming from the bass and the ride cymbal. And thus it creates a really nice hookup, as we said. All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm Bill Peterson, and I play piano in the Florida State Faculty Jazz Ensemble. And I'm just going to talk for a moment about the role of the piano in the trio and then in performing behind the horns who are soloing. So the piano provides the harmonic and rhythmic background for the horns, as well as functioning as a force that interacts with the other two instruments, the bass and the drums, and the soloists. The piano has the ability to play in many parts of the range. So in general, when I'm comping or accompanying, I would be playing in the middle, like this, B flat blues. But the piano can also accompany in other parts of the range. One thing to take into consideration when you're accompanying a horn solo is what part of the range they're playing in. For example, if the trombone soloist is playing, he would likely be playing right in the range where I was just playing, right around here. So sometimes it's cool to play a little bit in a different range from where he's playing. Instead of just playing on top of him, right here. And we'll demonstrate that for a moment, different ways of comping. And another aspect of that, not just playing in a different range than the trombone or the saxophone, but is how many notes I'm playing, how much space I'm taking up. So you can play fuller chords, or you could play chords that are more sparse in terms of the number of notes. And another important aspect as I play and demonstrate that is just listening for the way the piano and the drums can play off of each other in terms of the rhythms. So Professor Anderson might play a certain rhythm and I might respond to it, or he might play a rhythm and I would try to play with it. And it's the same thing for playing with the horns. They might play a certain figure and I might, or idea, and I might try to respond to it rhythmically or even in terms of the harmony. Or when they play, I might try to leave some space until they're done with their phrase and then come in and play, interject something behind them. So this next little thing we're going to play is just demonstrating playing in different ranges together and interacting with the piano and the drums.
Jones. I'm the jazz trombone professor at Florida State University. I'm going to talk about the first role of the horns as we play with the rhythm section, and that is presenting the melody as a cohesive unit. So our job is to present this melody. We're meeting the guidelines of the composer playing the melody, but we also must lock in the articulations and play together as a unit if there are multiple horns. So we're going to introduce an Ellis Marsalis tune here, and you're going to listen to us playing quarter notes together. We're locking with the rhythm section, and we're locking in together as we play this melody.
DETWILER. I'm the jazz saxophone professor at Florida State University. I'm going to talk a little bit about improvisation as it relates to the horn players. We talked a little bit about playing the melody, so that's one aspect of what we do as a horn player. But also we have a improvisatory role, so we have to know obviously the tune, and you have to know the chord changes of that tune very well. When I solo, my solo is dictated by maybe what happens in the rhythm section behind me. So the piano might play a rhythm. If I might choose to follow that rhythmic aspect or not. Same thing with the drums. That could dictate what I play in my solo as well. It's important to know that this music is a language. So while we're making up the solo in real time, it's what I play is dictated about what I've listened to in the past. So, and that's the jazz masters. So I'm not just playing anything. My solo is dictated about what I've listened to and who I've listened to, and who I've studied. So for instance, we're playing music of the modern jazz era, and by that I mean that starts with Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. So you have to know their music very well, and the soloists that they have influenced, like Dexter Gordon. For myself, since I play tenor, I'll name a few tenor players. Dexter Gordon, John Coltrane, Sonny Stitt, Sonny Rollins, etc. So all of that goes into my improvisation. So while we are making it up on the spot, and this is for all the instruments, our improvisation is based on our study and listening to the jazz masters. Now we're going to perform an Ella Marsalis composition for you, and this is entitled Swingin' at the Haven.
again, thank you guys so very much for joining us for this short presentation. Again, Mr. Bill Peterson at the piano, Mr. Rodney Jordan at the bass, Mr. David Detwiler on tenor sax, Mr. Kevin Jones on the trombone. My name is Leon Anderson at the drums. Again, we thank you so very much for allowing us to come and speak to you about this art form that we call jazz. And we'd like to once again thank the Good Times Jazz Club for allowing us this opportunity to speak to you today about this music. And the two compositions that you heard were from the great mentor, I consider, Mr. Ellis Marcellus, who was a great jazz educator in his own right and very inspirational to many, many musicians that teach all across this world. So we wanted to make sure that we honor the great memory of the great Ellis Marcellus by playing two of his compositions for you today. Thank you so very much for joining us, and on behalf of Florida State University College of Music, we thank you very much, and we hope to see you guys again sometime soon. Thank you.